Time for this week's RSPW Rewind. Last week, I was going through posts from 20 years ago about marks and smarks, and I came across a post by Zoog's Rift, the Liquid Moamo. And I had absolutely no idea that that was Aron Riff's father of NoDQ.com. I got a ton of messages about it, and I was completely oblivious to who it was, or that he booked the UWF for a year back in the 90s and worked alongside Herb Abrams, the same Herb Abrams who was found naked, covered in baby oil and grease with cocaine all over his body, and inside his body too, I'm sure, when he was arrested and then had a heart attack and died. The stories he must have had about Herb Abrams. But his posts are everywhere on RSPW. I actually found one from 1995 where he let people ask him personal questions. And in one post in the thread, and if anybody wants to share this with Aron, feel free. But in one post, he said, "I never left the sport of wrestling. Since leaving Herb Abrams' UWF last year, I've been working occasional indie dates and auditioning for the bigger US promotions. I've recently buried the hatchet with Herb, so there are now plans for me to do some shows with him again starting early next year. But if Titan calls, I'll be in New Haven before you can say Golden Crab. As for the music business, I don't have a current record deal, and without financing, nothing gets done. So I'm spending most of my time these days tending to my mail-order cassette business, doing front office wrestling work, playing Super Nintendo with my 12-year-old son, Aron, and having fun on the internet." So that's very cool that his dad was part of that whole community. I still don't know what a Liquid Moamo is, though. On to this week's segment. I mentioned earlier, Mayor Kane has a new book coming out, which you can pre-order using our Audible link and get it for free. audibletrial.com/Solomonster, cheap plug. Before he was the mayor of Knox County, he was Kane for over 20 years. And when that Kane character debuted in 1997, who the hell would have ever known that he would still be around all these years later? He's been around almost as long as The Undertaker. So we look back here this week on some Kane-related threads. Actually, it's more Glenn Jacobs-related threads. We're going to start with some posts from his Isaac Yankem days. So we're going old school here. June 27th, 1995. Claude Lucas started a post about Isaac Yankem. And this is what he had to say. Lawler said that Yankem used to wrestle in the WWF under a false name, so he must be very recognizable, even to the marks. Not like Savio Vega Quang or Papa Shango Kama. Any idea who it could be? Paul says Dr. Death Steve Williams or Dr. Shane Douglas, which would make sense since he is going to medical school. Or Dustin Rhodes. And we're being thrown a curveball with WWF stressing the DDS initials. Of the three, it could be Dustin since he's the most recognizable to the masses of the past 2 to 3 years. So there were people who thought that Dustin Rhodes was going to play the role of Isaac Yankem. Wow. I'm trying to picture that in my head. I mean, I guess, hey, they could have pulled it off, I suppose. Boy, he'd dodge a bullet with that one. July 3rd, 1995, TC Cannon, with a post that says, "Was that Glenn Jacobs?" Says, if that was Glenn Jacobs as Isaac Yankem on Raw tonight, then the people on RSPW who said he looks like Sid Udy are complete and utter idiots. He doesn't look a damn thing like Udy, more like Dave Schultz. Unless you people can make a decent comparison, then please shut the hell up. July 2nd, 1997, a post by Nicholas Seafort titled Kane, Who Could It Be? So now we're moving on to the Kane days here. Now, this was obviously posted months before Kane actually made his debut on TV. Paul Bearer had been on television. He was telling The Undertaker his brother Kane was alive. And people were speculating on who would play the part of Kane. Some of these suggestions are something else. He says, just some late night thoughts on who The Undertaker's little brother Kane could turn out to be. Brian Lee. Most obvious given his role as the fake Undertaker in 1994. Glenn Jacobs. He's about the same size as The Undertaker. He's grown his hair out as well for the Diesel role. Perhaps he can make be made to resemble Calloway, although unlikely. Ultimate Warrior. Why not? While absolutely ridiculous and politically unfeasible, Warrior turning out to be The Undertaker's brother would give new light to their feud. Oh my god. Mankind. Perhaps they could say that after the house burned down, little Kane was taken by Paul Bearer to Mrs. Foley, who adopted Kane as her own son. It might explain the derangement and the scars from the fire. Ron Studd. Probably still under some form of contract to WCW. He certainly wouldn't be Undertaker's little brother anymore. For those who don't know, Ron Studd was Ron Reese from WCW. He was Reese in Raven's Flock. He was taller than The Undertaker, taller than Kane, and would have been a terrible choice. Brian Christopher. Not only is he Jerry Lawler's son, but Undertaker's brother. No, wait, that would create plot holes. Del Wilkes has worn a mask nearly his entire career. Few remember what he looks like underneath. Del Wilkes was the Patriot. So imagine the Patriot debuting as Undertaker's little brother Kane. Recon, or is it Interrogator? Whoever the big guy is from the Truth Commission. Brackus has never wrestled on national TV before. No prior gimmicks to cloud fans' perceptions of him. And then, last but not least here, The Undertaker. Like someone else suggested, The Undertaker is Kane. In fact, he was referred to as Kane and then Kane the Undertaker during his first week in the WWF. Well, that would have sucked. Ender Wiggin replies, "Who gives a shit, really?" So after that whole post, Ender says, "Who gives a shit?" That was his response. Well, that's not very helpful. David says, "I think it might be Vader. Vader has red hair just like Undertaker, and when Paul Bearer said that Kane was alive, it was right at that second that Vader jumped Undertaker from behind. Also, they're wrestling on Sunday right when this angle starts to take shape, and so the timing is perfect." Ron Brownstein says, "I know logic plays no role in this Undertaker-Kane fiasco of an angle, but Calloway's younger brother could not be passed off as Vader. For one, Leon White is nearly 20 years older than The Undertaker. Then again, I guess wrong on the contents of the giant egg a few years ago when Hector was hatched, so it's anyone's guess." For the record, Vader was not 20 years older than The Undertaker. He was 10 years older, which I'm sure if you asked them, they would tell you that's a big difference. We skip ahead to June 23rd, 1998. We are now firmly in the Attitude Era. This is a post by Jeff Unibomb Genovese, or Genovese. I like Genovese, I'm going to call him that. Titled, "Is Kane's voice fucked up for real?" I'm sure he doesn't actually need a voice box to speak, but is there something wrong with Kane's voice? It's really weird that none of his three characters in WWF ever said anything. He never spoke as Diesel, and he could only ever say "open wide" as Isaac Yankem. It has to be more than just a coincidence. Is there anyone who lives in the Memphis area here in this forum? Did Glenn Jacobs or Doomsday ever speak? Did he have a lisp? Does he have a high girly voice? An Elmer Fudd wascally wabbit voice? There must be a reason. And that's true, actually. Mr. Genovese makes a good point. Jacobs was never really all that chatty in any of the roles that he had on WWF television until he tried to impregnate Lita. And then he got very chatty. But even the early days of Kane, Fake Diesel, Isaac Yankem, he never really spoke. Never really had a lot to say. This person, we'll call him the man with no name since he only has an email address, wrote, "He used a vibrator that was meant to stick up his ass in order to fuzz his voice like he can't speak the English language." Stunt His 9 says, "Doomsday did speak a few times in Memphis. He did not speak much. His voice is not messed up." Zeke says, "No, there is no problem with his voice. You can tell because McMahon was holding the microphone near Kane's mouth and you could hear him talking for real. If his voice was fucked up, he would have had to put the microphone near the cancer kazoo to hear what Kane was saying. A simple mistake that they made. he would not have been able to make any words out of his mouth if he was really screwed up. Now, a few days later, on June 28th, 1998, this was the night of the King of the Ring in 1998, the big First Blood match where Kane beat Stone Cold Steve Austin to become the new WWF champion. Michael Price was absolutely furious about the outcome of this match in a post titled, "Shameful. Kane is the new champ." Says nobody can ever criticize the WCW about who gets the belt. By the way, dead giveaway that Bret Hart wrote this post under an assumed name by calling it the WCW. Do you realize that Glenn Jacobs' name will go on the records along with Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker as having been the WWF Heavyweight Champion? This is absolutely disgraceful. Even Hogan and Luger are better wrestlers than this moron. What a fucking disgrace. Wow. Well, Felix Vinichchuk fought back. You're a fucking disgrace. Hogan is better than Jacobs? What fucking planet are you from? Kane is a temporary champion for a month. Big fucking deal. It's called angle development, you idiot. Or angle advancement, he says. It's angle advancement, you idiot. Wu-Tang, or Wu-9-Tang, says, I thought this was about entertainment, not who has the best work rate. Who gives a fuck about whether Glenn Jacobs' name is up there with Shawn Michaels? It's staged, bitch. Get it through your head. We skip ahead to March 5th, 2000, a post by Taco titled, Is Glenn Jacobs Ugly? I heard Glenn Jacobs was really ugly under the Kane mask. Is that true? Hasn't anyone here ever seen him wrestle in Southern Redneck Memphis Wrestling Association or some other dumb indie? Well, let's see here. This guy's name is Hulka, last name Maniac. So Hulka says, he looks like Kubiak from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. Holy crap, you know what? He does kind of look like Kubiak from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. How did I never see that? Anybody who doesn't know what Parker Lewis Can't Lose is, you're not missing much. It was an old TV show. Type in Kubiak. I absolutely see the comparison now. I never thought of that. And then we have August 18th, 1998. Blaine Thompson started a post titled, Why Wasn't Kane Burned? Says, okay, I really think that the bookers just forgot the storyline here. But I've thought about this scenario. What if Kane is not burned at all? No one ever said, yes, he's all burned up. It's all just speculation. Maybe this could lead to something. Kane turns out to be Paul Bear's son, but he's not related to The Undertaker at all. Paul just made up the story to get into The Undertaker's head. So it's very interesting here to see Blaine pitch the story, or pitch this theory, way back in 98 that Kane was in fact never really burned at all, which turned out to be the case. But Baka Boy 712 had a logical answer for this. He had a logical answer for why Kane wasn't burned. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed for a good 20 seconds when I first read this post. And I wish he was on the WWE creative team. This was his theory. Kane is not burned. The new action figure with the removable mask shows that he isn't, at least on his face and arms. Which brings up this startling revelation. Kane was really Isaac Yankem all along. Undertaker skipped out on paying for some big dental work, including crowns and braces, and now Yankem has hunted his ass down for payment, plus interest in the form of repeated ass whoopings. Undertaker's brother has always been dead. This was all just a ploy to traumatize him even further. Paul Bear is in on it, for a 10% cut, of course. Now that's an angle. Now that, you know what? That is an angle. That is a tremendous angle. And this has been your weekly reminder not to skip out on your dental bill. Because one way or another, your doctor is going to get their money.